Not sure if you can see this, but this is my storage shed. And under here, if you can see that, it's a screw jack that I made. Because over time, this shed is sitting on just blocks on the ground. And it's sinking over time. So I'll just take you in and show you how I made that. So here we go. We're here. It's very simple. Now this is a larger one, obviously, but it's the same. And I just took there is as many washers as you want. This is just a tubing, a piece of gas pipe, actually. I think it's 1 1/4 diameter, but you can use whatever you have, or all depends on how much you know what you're doing with it. You know, you can even jack your car out with these things, actually, but I use them for the shed. I got 2 there, just to, you know, over the couple years it might go down just because it's sitting. And I filled in some land in, like I took out some big boulders and I put topsoil in, and so it kind of changed the drainage a little. So it drains a little more on the back of the shed, so my storage shed, and it kind of sinks. There is a cliff underneath. It's only going to sink, you know, so far, but it does every couple years, you know, have to be cranked up a little bit. And I find with these things, you know, you can just give it a crank, level her out, and you're done with it, right? And when she stops settling, just put blocks in. You can take this out if you want, or just leave it. But yeah, so this is the threaded rod that fits in here. I think this is 7/8, and just 2 washers, and just some flat stock. I would have liked to, at the time I ran out, I would have liked to had a little thicker, you know, maybe, well, you don't need a 1/2 inch, but, you know, a 1/4 inch would have been nice. And you just take your flat stock and you weld your threaded rod onto it. For this job, you know, the welding didn't have to be pretty. It's functional. You know, I didn't even paint it. I just left it. But so, you know, try to get it as square as you can. Mine did not come out perfectly square, but again, it don't matter for this application. So you weld your threaded rod in to your plate. You put your nut on. Now this is, I think I only made 2 like this because you know, instead of having to have a wrench, I can just use these to turn it, and you don't need to take a wrench or anything with you. So which is no big deal. I probably wouldn't do it again because, you know, for the convenience, it's not that big of a deal. Put your nut on, and then you take your pipe, however high you want it for whatever application you are. Just remember that give us some allowance for your welds, because, you know, unless you're going to really, you know, TIG weld it or something, but just give yourself a little bit of an allowance so that this sits on top. So if you want 9 inches, you know, taking in consideration your plate, your top plate, this won't sit perfectly on the nut, plus the thickness of your nut as well. So yeah, you just factor all that in, and then if you need 9 inches, you may have to come down, say 8 inches, so that when you put this on, it will give you the 9 inches that you want, minimum height. And so then, with that said, you take your pipe, you weld it onto a base. Like I say, I wish I had a little thicker, but you know, this have worked fine. I actually, you know, had this under my the storage shed for a long time. It was holding up the whole corner, so weld it on. Again, you don't have to be perfect unless you are anal about these things. Then you got your threaded rod. Now, if I was going to do this again, I would have taken one of those washers and I would have put it on here, and I would have just welded it to the pipe, just so that it would be more stable when you would put this in. It wouldn't have as much movement. You know, that's some things that I observed that I would have done. Actually, I did make a couple with that welded on, and it is better. So then you just put it, you know, put it together. You can paint it if you want, and one-handed there, but you just put it in under, you know, whatever it is you're going to hold up or you're leveling out, and you just turn it. You know, this air, once it's tight under your whatever that you know you're using this for, once this is tight and it gets resistance, this won't turn. Sometimes it may, as you got to really reef on it to turn it, it may, but usually, you know, not too bad. And you just turn this, and as high as you want to go, right? But word to the wise, leave at least 2 inches, you know. So factor that in when you're measuring all this up. Leave at least 2 inches in the pipe, because you don't want to, you know, take away from. If it's too far up, it's more prone to tip, and it's just not safe. So leave it about 2 inches in there, and you'll be fine. But yeah, so it goes. This one goes from, I believe it is 9 inches to 16, and yeah, it works. You know, it works really well. So just a little something for you to think about. I think, you know, I'm sure I'm not the one that come up with this or whatever. There's probably a million people that have came up with better solutions, but this is from the scrap that I had, and you know, I needed it to level out my shed, and it works perfect. You can paint it if you want. As you see, it did get rusty, but I didn't intend having it on there as long as I did. But so yeah, it works great. Thank you.